Hey everybody, it's Katie from Bobby Hair Studio. Thanks for watching all of our videos and I hope you guys like this one. This one's a little bit different today. What it's about is how to do a color correction from start to finish. And this can work with multiple colors of dye, it can work with home box dye, it can work with salon dye. It works with basically everything because the plan is to bleach her head out entirely, drop a root, and retone her. What you need to know before you start a process like this is that we did do a test strand the night before, and my client is actually a stylist herself and she knows very much about what it is that we're doing. She's also been informed that the bottom 4 to 5 inches of her hair completely melted off in the test strand, so she knows she's going to have a lot of heavy duty damage and a big cut. But that's okay because she knows that and still consented to go forward with the process and still pay full price. So now we're gonna dive in and I'm gonna describe what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And keep in mind, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to do a bleach out. This is just my way. I've separated her hair into 4 quadrants and I'm starting with the back like I always do with my bleach. That's because usually the hair in the back is healthier and sometimes even a little bit darker with some clients. So I do actually have a little bit more time for lightening in the back, and that's why I always start in the back. I'm using Blonde Me with 20 vol, and what I'm doing is I'm applying from a 1/4 inch away from her root where the red starts all the way to about the middle, and in the middle is where she's had old bleach about 1.5 years ago. I'm avoiding those previously bleached ends right now, but I will be going over them later. And the reason is the middle of her hair has never been bleached, so it's healthier, but it's also had a lot more color on it. So the cuticle of her hair is actually going to be a lot more closed up and more difficult to penetrate through with lightener. So that's why we want more time on that middle area, because it has virgin hair underneath, so it can handle the lift. I'm using a paddle board so I can feel how much saturation I'm getting, and I'm using very skinny strips of her hair. Now she has Spanish hair, so it's very thick hair, which means I'm gonna have to use a ton of foil and a ton of bleach. In fact, I think I used almost an entire bucket of bleach on this client alone. Now you're able to see that I'm starting my second side and I'm moving my way up towards the crown of her head. Saturation and fresh bleach is super key to getting a beautiful even lift, especially when you have tons and tons of red in the hair. There's so many layers of red in this hair, plus my client actually did 3 color remover services on herself. She used the Malibu Crystal Gel at home in preparation before our service. This is important because it opens up the hair cuticle and allows the larger color molecules to drop out of the hair before we even do a bleaching service, which means the bleach has less color to work through and it can lighten the hair lighter and brighter and easier. I also find this method with the paddle and hand placing the foils underneath is a super fast method, and when I fold up those old ends into the saturated area, they will lift a bit, but they're not quite as saturated as the mids. So that helps them to lift, but without too much damage. And of course, here's her whole head being covered in foils. It's a crazy amount of work, you guys. After her mids have almost finished processing, they're about a level 8 right now, I like to go through and pull the foil away slightly to tap onto the root with bleach. And I use a 20 volume and Blonde Me as well here. This is a good opportunity for me to make sure that she has great saturation up at the top of her foil and to double check that her roots are being fully covered. And now I really cover these roots with bleach, you guys. I don't skimp out on my bleach at all. This is a super fast method to applying your bleach roots when you have the mids being covered, because you get to grab the foil and just slap it on, and grab the foil and slap it on. This is the quickest thing ever. I love it. I have my assistant helping me today because my client was originally supposed to be booked in for like a full head of baby lights, not a full-blown color correction, but then she changed her mind when we got in and she was about 45 minutes late. So that's why I have my apprentice helping me, and she's doing a great job. She's following all of my instructions very carefully and she's super detail oriented. In the front, the bleach wasn't quite finished, so all I really did was just shift the foils a little bit further down. But in the back here, my foils are actually done processing, so I'm pulling them out after I'm done applying each root, and that just saves me lots of time at the sink later on. I'm also checking to saturate the ends with more 20 volume, and I'm making sure that my perimeter and every area that's being bleached is super fully covered. And like I said, those ends have lightened nicely because they were touching fully saturated strands, but they weren't fully saturated themselves, so they didn't get the full brunt of the bleach. So my assistant just left in those foils on the side there until they were fully done processing. Then we checked the ends, and now we're rinsing her out. The rinse is super important. I always use cool water to soothe the scalp, and I make sure that I've completely rinsed out all of my bleach. And then I do 2 shampoos, and then after that, it's time to tone. So because I was running short on time today, we decided to do the cut first while we were thinking about what toner we would use. So as you can see, she still has orange about 1/4 inch away down the rest of her hair shaft, and that's from her old color still staining, even though we did 3 color removers and a full bleaching over. Guys, red color stays in the hair. It does not like to go away. Her ends are quite severely damaged, as she knows, and because she wants to keep as much length as she possibly can, we're going to give her an angled bob, and we're going to try to keep it as long as possible. What's important to note about services like this is that if your client feels like they don't want to cut their hair, that you just don't do the service then, because honestly, a lot of clients are more attached to their length than they are to their color, and that's totally okay. But I never want to make my clients really unhappy. I never want to have them leaving the salon crying or sad because they had to cut a bunch of length off. So I do tell people, hey, this is the realistic amount that we're going to have to cut off, and I add an inch or 2 because who knows what could happen once you're done foiling all of the hair. You might end up having way more damage than you initially thought. So it's important to just be honest with your clients, even though a lot of times clients think that we're able to just work magic on their hair and we're able to keep it healthy. That's not always the case. We want to bring the reality back to clients that sometimes we can't do the magical transformations without a big cut or without some damage. And sometimes we can't do them at all just because of how the hair lifts. Ultimately, my client had decided that she would rather have shorter hair that's not red rather than to have longer red hair because she was so against that color. For some reason, it just didn't work well on her skin tone. And even though she tried multiple colors of red, it just wasn't for her. So that's totally okay. It's totally fine if people want to play around with some colors, and it's okay if they want to get a color correction as long as they fully understand the possible implications of a color correction. It's a very expensive process and it's very damaging to the hair, and you might need to get a really big chop at the end of it. I'm over directing the front towards the back a little bit because we wanted to give her an angled lob, but with a really, really soft graduation. We didn't want to do a ton of layering. We didn't want to do a crazy looking lob. That's just not her style. She wanted something pretty soft and basic because her color is changing in a really crazy way today. So we don't want to shock her. Once I'm done cutting, I make sure I measure everything, and then we're going to be doing the layers in the back, and then I will be applying my root shadow and my toner. It's important to note that I do put on my root shadow before I put on my toner. I feel like the root shadow needs a little bit longer to process, so I put that on first, and then I can smudge that softer, lighter toner into the ends, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute here. And what I'm putting on her roots today is Schwarzkopf, and I'm putting on a 7-1, a 6-63, a 7-55, and a 7-0 because I needed those warm colors to fill in her root, and I need the cool colors to cancel out the warm tones. It's a little bit of color theory, but it gives her a really soft root. Then her ends are going to be a 951, a 91, an 811, and a 955, and a 94 by Schwarzkopf. These colors work together really beautifully, and I knew that they would drop out a lot of the color up in the root toner, which is why I did the root toner a little darker than I had originally planned on it being, because I know that hair that light likes to drop toner like nobody's business. This is our final result, and we were really happy with it. We were really surprised that her hair even lifted this much, and because she has beautiful, resilient Spanish hair, it dried up gorgeously. Now it's still hella dry on the ends, but she knows how to take care of her hair as she's a hairdresser. What do you guys think? Tell us how you feel in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe and support small businesses. Thank you so much for watching, and go enjoy some of our other videos.